I was not planning on anything in higher ed. I didn't even really know what it meant other than I was a doctoral student at Bethel. I was working towards becoming a principal and or a director of special education. And during that time, I was working on a project, and I interviewed Dr. Jay Rasmussen, and he said, well, can I ask you some questions at the end? And then he asked if I would be interested in the program director position for special education graduate program. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he said, the previous person was retiring, and they were looking for someone with my background. And so I applied, I think, within a month, and left public education to come here. But it was a huge leap of faith for me. I remember it was the first time in my life I had actually prayed prostrate on the floor because it was going to be a huge pay cut, and I didn't know if I could actually do that. And but God provided, and 17 years later, I'm still here. So I was a master's student. I don't remember what years now. I finished in 2005. And then I was a doctoral student, and then when I was hired for this position, I was program director and faculty. I taught in our CAS education department and the graduate school, along with being the program director. And then I was the program director for the CAPS special ed program when that was first launched. And then I was hired as the Associate Dean of Education last year, 2023. And I share that position along with my program director role. I had one other position. I was also the Assistant Dean for the Office of Accessibility and the BUILD program. That was for 3 years. I've had really great, strong women impact my role at Bethel. Initially, it was Dr. Louise Wilson. She was the chair of the ed department, and she just really believed in me as a young leader, and she was such a visionary and allowed me that freedom to really dream and think big about different things that I wanted to be doing. During that time, I also started to work I was invited to be on committees with Deb Sullivan Trainer and Deb Harless. And as I observed their leadership, I realized that was something that I wanted to experience and find opportunities that gave me more opportunities to lead than beyond the special education program. And through a nomination from Deb Harless, I was able to go to the Women's Leadership Development Institute in 2018, and that was just remarkable. It was an opportunity to be with 24 other women from the US at CCCU schools in Canada, and to really just have a focused time of strong female leadership. And that was an incredible time for me. And I knew I didn't want to leave Bethel to explore other leadership positions because I love Bethel. And so I just stayed here even though my position was fairly stagnant. I didn't get to have more leadership beyond the assistant dean role. But then when this position opened up a year ago, it felt like the right time to step into a higher level of leadership. The education department, it's mostly female. As far as full-time faculty, I have to think about this. I only have one male, and the rest of the faculty are female, and I'm thinking across the whole education unit. And so, yes, a very female-oriented space. And I will also share another woman who had an impact on me was Dr. Judy Landrum, and that was most recently because she was my predecessor of my current role. And she was somebody who always allowed me to lead in the ways that felt important and good for me. And she didn't push her leadership style on me. Our leadership styles are very different, and she just gave me so much autonomy that I was really able to lean into the ways the the ways God made me and how I can lead through those gifts and expertise. I think it's really important. I do think diversity of faculty is important, whether that's through gender or cultural differences. And I absolutely believe our students need to see people like them. And as we look at hiring new people, which we haven't been able to do for a while, that's a goal of ours, is to look for candidates that are not currently represented. And that, for example, we have a Chinese adjunct faculty who, it's in a virtual setting, so they don't get to see her very often, but they can hear her, and that's really important to me. And so I think about, we happen to have a lot of African students in our program from Somalia, Liberia, and in the graduate programs. And they don't see anyone that looks like them, and that's hard for me. And so we just hired a new Black faculty member within the last 9 months, I think. So that will now make a difference, but again, it's virtual. And so in those virtual settings, students don't get to see their professor very often. I think about the traditional undergrad side. Yes, we absolutely want to have representation of who our students are, and we do not have that. We have strong women, and we have a strong male leader, but we don't have diverse women in our traditional undergraduate side. And I would love for that to happen. And so then it's, looking at our student body and those who we can train to become student leaders, and can we find some of those BIPOC students who could be leaders so that others coming up behind them are encouraged and want to come into the field. That's really important to me. I will say our faculty are really good about identifying differences in their coursework, so making sure that that is represented in their resources, in their, if they're bringing people in for interviewing, and offering multiple opportunities for our students to get into schools where they are seeing that, but it's not where I want it to be yet at Bethel. It has not been difficult for me. I have felt so supported ever since my first day. I mean, even thinking of that day Dr. Rasmussen asked me, would you consider this? It had been led by a man ever since the special education program began, and he created and developed a wonderful program. And so to be asked as a young woman at that time was a huge honor for me. And so stepping into that, and then immediately having Dr. Wilson be my supervisor, she was my mentor. Dr. Kathy Nevins stepped in and mentored me along the way. She was part of my doctoral committee. So I've had strong women supporting me, and I believe that's probably a reason why I have always felt supported here. I loved my time working with those two departments, and I think Bethel does an amazing job modeling what it's like to serve and support students with disabilities, and being the only university, the only four-year university in Minnesota that has a residential program for students with intellectual disabilities is such an honor. And Dawn Allen, I don't know if you'll get to interview her, but she's such a strong leader for that program. And she's one that probably feels the challenges, I don't know if at Bethel, but as far as the community at large, because we're a Christian university. So there are challenges there, but being able to walk alongside her and collaborate with her was just tremendous. And then working closely with Liz Bird in the Office of Accessibility, she does an amazing job leading that department. And it's all women, and they're strong women that are supporting all of our students with disabilities across the campus. And they're fantastic. I miss working with them. So as a student, I felt really supported. I never felt, I can't speak for men, but I didn't feel like my experience was different than the males I was with. In the doctoral program in particular, you'd think maybe there would be more males because it was leading into administration, and that historically in public schools was a very male-dominated field, and it was encouraging to me that when I think about my particular cohort, I think we were about half and half. So that was great to have that ability to collaborate with men and women. My experiences in the public schools, I'm just reflecting on my years. A majority of the leaders where I was were women, strong women, when I think back many years ago. Principals, all but 3 were women, and I was in a variety of different schools and school districts. And then when I was in special education administration, my entire team was female, strong females. So in reflection, I guess I've been surrounded by strong females my whole career. I will share in the pre-questions you asked about the church I grew up in, and it is not a church that would give any recognition to females other than if you're a mom and God did not bless us with children, which is okay. But in that particular church, I was not valued unless I was a mom with children. And that was very difficult for me. That wasn't the reason I left the church. I left the church for different reasons, but it was not a place other than playing the organ and making coffee and cooking food and having children. There was not another space for women in that church. And now I'm in a very healthy church. There's, women in the pulpit for different times of the year. There are women on the pastoral team. I've been asked to lead in many different ways. And so it's this whole new, exciting part of my spiritual journey. And I haven't been a part of my old church for more than, 25 years at this point. And I've had a healthy journey since then. But currently, I am just amazed what a difference it makes when the church can give that support of women. And so it works beautifully along with Bethel because of what we stand for here at Bethel, but that's been a big change for me in the last 2 years. Well, specific to education, I hope and pray our numbers will increase as we desperately need Christian educators in our public schools. And I want Bethel to be a leader in that. I want Bethel to be known as the place for educators to come and prepare to be a part of the public schools. An alum of Bethel shared that she sees the classroom as the biggest and most important mission field. And I think that's such a beautiful way to say it. And if we can be a strong department that prepares these teachers, I believe our numbers will continue to grow. And so I pray God will just overwhelm us with new students so that we can stay strong as a department.